Did you ever see Searching, the found footage type thriller from 2018 starring John Cho? Well, the director of that has now released a new Hulu original movie called Run. Parts of it feel like we've already seen them before, but does that hold true for the whole movie? A homeschooled teenager begins to think her mom is hiding deep, dark secrets from her and sets out to find out what those might be. Diane is a mom with a sickly and partially paralyzed teenager named Chloe. They homeschool and they seem to have a pretty good relationship. There seems to be, though, this growing tension between them, and some of that may be just because Chloe is a teenager. She's stretching her wings, she's getting ready to graduate, and so she's pushing those boundaries. And so this is kind of a natural thing, that there is the tension between parents and their children as they begin to leave the nest or they get ready to leave the house for school or for whatever that happens to be. Sarah Paulson and Kiera Allen star in this thriller, and when I first saw the trailer and even just read the description, it reminded me so much of another Hulu original called The Act. In that, the mom feels a bit sketchy and she has a sickly daughter who begins to think that maybe something's not totally right with their relationship. The Act was a 2019 series starring Joey King and Patricia Arquette, and it was on Hulu. And it was really good, but it was based on a true story also. So there are portions of Run that do feel a lot like The Act. Now, Sarah Paulson is quietly intense, but she's also caring and compassionate. I mean, she is very concerned for the well-being of her daughter. She's totally devoted to her, very dedicated. I mean, you almost get the sense like she has given up a lot so that her daughter can just thrive. She also gives off an air of suspicion, and I know that that is obviously exactly how it's designed because that's the way they frame the shots, that's the way they even ramp up the music, and they write out certain scenes so that we do begin to think something negative about Sarah Paulson as the mom Diane. Kyra Allen as Chloe is awesome. I mean, she in real life uses a wheelchair. And I love how she was able to inform the director and the filmmakers just on some nuances of things that she would do or say that maybe they had just slightly off. And so it captured a lot more realism than if you just had somebody who didn't have any type of physical disability trying to just play that role. As Chloe, she is strong and smart, and I love how we get to see all of these conflicting thoughts. They don't always are vocalized, but you can see them in her actions, her mannerisms, her facial expressions, as she tries to work through things, and she discovers things that, oh, well, no, this seems a little bit off, but I can explain it this way. And then, oh, okay, well, that's all right. And she goes back and forth, and it's just that internal struggle that she executes really well. At 90 minutes long, this is a very quick watch, but they do an effective job of building tension and even a little bit of urgency right from just about the beginning of the film. I like the isolated feel that this also has because the family lives in the middle of nowhere. They're just on this house that feels like it's deserted, or there is probably miles and miles and miles before you ever get to see another living soul. Now, for my friends who live in the Tri-Cities in Washington, you might get a little offended at how they portray Pasco. That's where this supposedly takes place, and they make Pasco be a one-street, just Hickville town. And I know that's not true because I've been there. And so it was really weird. I almost would have preferred that they made it a fictional city. You could still place it in Washington if that's what you want the setting to be, but don't make it a real place and then have it so drastically different from that real place. Now, because I watched The Act, it was really hard for me to not have this feeling and this sense like I knew exactly where the story was going to go and how it was going to take me and what surprises were going to be there. I had this feeling like I was going to be able to see the story play out way before we got there. So what did happen is then it made what we saw not that very shocking to me. But luckily, they do have some surprises in there that I didn't expect. And so I appreciated those nuances and some of just the information that they contained that they held back or that it came out of the blue to me. And I liked that. With Chloe being partially paralyzed and thus in a wheelchair, I love the added complication that brings to the story, that they really use that effectively to build more tension. There are some times where Chloe needs to accomplish something in a certain time period. She's got a very short time window to be able to do this, but it's not like she can just hop over a bed or run from room to room or whatever that happens to be. I mean, she has to use her chair and maneuver about, and that adds time and that adds difficulty. and that adds tension and suspense and some anxiety. I mean, in those scenes, the urgency was there and it was building up my heartbeat. And I liked that because that's an effective thriller right there. Even though I figured out that I think I know where this is going, or I feel like I've seen a lot of this before, it was still able to affect me in certain ways. So the story is pretty decent. The acting is outstanding. I mean, Sarah Paulson is great as just this weird mom, maybe overbearing, maybe helicopter, and also a little air of suspicion there. And then you have Allen, who is just outstanding in what she's doing and what she brings to the screen. She really creates a character that we can root for, that we want to root for, and we want to see her succeed and figure out this puzzle. So if you've not seen The Act, you're probably going to enjoy this a whole lot. If you have seen The Act, though, I'm not sure that this is necessarily something you're going to want to rush right out and watch, even though it is pretty decent. There's no sex or nudity, some profanity, and some violence. I give Run 3 out of 5 couches. So have you seen any great thrillers lately? I'd love to know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.